Yeah, so this is the classic Apprentice task where where the two teams are tasked with creating a food item which they'll need to sell. So one half of the task is to sell the food item to a corporate client and sort of make a specialty product that sort of fits with the brand and their brief. And then one mass product that they're going to go to a food market and sell in bulk. So this is a classic task. I think they've done this every year on The Apprentice, in various guises. You know, they've had drinks, they've had, sandwiches, but this year it was cheesecake, which is quite nice because I think most people like cheesecake. Would you say?
Yeah, I do like cheesecake.
Yeah, so it's quite. So I think Lord Sugar sort of set them up for success with this one. So there was two teams. Again, you had boys versus the girls. And what did you think about who should we start off with? Do you want to start with the boys?
So with the boys, how did they do on the cheesecake task?
Yeah, so I think first they had to select a project manager. Yeah, so one of the boys stepped forward to be project manager. He said he's got a pie business, so he's actually in the food business and he manufactures and sells pies. So I mean, he sounds like a complete and utter expert. Although if you've seen our first review of the first episode, you know that sometimes being an expert doesn't always being an expert doesn't always make a difference with a task. So he was the project manager for the boys, and they quickly decided upon a chocolate theme for the cheesecake, which I thought was quite popular because most people like chocolate. So that's what they sort of set their sights on, a chocolate themed for their cheesecake. And they were told who their corporate client was, and the corporate client was Innocent Smoothies, who are known for using fruits and, vegetables, which they blend together to make smoothies and fruit juices. They're quite a healthy...
So were they told this before they actually went there?
Yeah.
And they still went with chocolate anyway?
Yeah, I think they knew. Yeah, I think they knew. I'm pretty sure they knew. No, I don't, not at the start of the task. They didn't know at the start. But I think they were then given their corporate client.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember they had to they made it afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So, because I remember when they were in the lobby of the corporate client, one of the contestants was saying, look, they're all about fruits and veg. Let's not go in on chocolate. In fact, let's not mention chocolate. Let's say we're a sweets company. We do cheesecake and we can offer a range of different types of cheesecake, including chocolate. So that's what that person said. Let's not go in and say we're chocolate. But unfortunately, one of the contestants comes in and the first thing he said is, we are a chocolate cheesecake maker. We can make you a good chocolate. And the team from Innocence were like, no, that's not what we want. We specialize in fruit and veg. That's what we want. That's what we have. He goes, no. Forget about fruit and veg. Why don't you guys focus on indulging? Have a bit of an indulgent moment. Corporate client again said, no, we don't want to do that. We are focused on fruits and veg. He then said again, I know that, but who cares about one? He said, who cares about one a day? I think he meant 5 a day. Fruit and veg. And it was literally sort of almost at this point badgering the corporate client.
Yeah, it's quite embarrassing.
And the corporate client, again, I mean, deadpan, not smiling, not happy, probably thinking, who are these time wasters? No, we don't, fruit and veg. Then someone had to come in and save the day and sort of say, okay, no problem, we can make sure that we incorporate some fruit and veg for you. In which the corporate client said, okay, great, we're happy to do that. But at that point, they've already kind of sullied the relationship. Like the corporate client is not happy. They don't really have confidence in the team. And I think if you're going to go in for a negotiation, that's probably not the best place to start. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree as well. And I think, one of the things that they didn't that guy was not factoring in, his focus was clearly on selling, which I can understand, which was on selling, trying to sell the cheesecake for the highest price. But I think, what I understand is that, when you're selling, your focus really should be on the client and what the client wants,
right?
And really delivering what the client wants. So when that guy came in and said, oh, you want fruit? We can incorporate that for you.
Yeah,
exactly. He's demonstrating that he's listening to what the client is saying. Whereas the first guy wasn't demonstrating. He clearly had, he wanted to sell it, which I can understand. But the client is clearly telling you they don't want that.
Yeah.
And he's not listening to what actively listening to what maybe he heard what they said, but he's not listening, taking it in what they actually said.
He's just determined.
And adapting. Yeah, he's just determined.
Yeah. And what made it even worse is that they had a discussion right before saying, let's not do that. So it just didn't look good.
And I think it's back to this kind of concept of some people have this perception that the best salesman is the one that is, got the gift of the gab. They can sell anything to anyone, just, cheeky chappy. And, it's really not true. You might see it in some shows, or you might see it in some movies, but, if you, most of the time, if you speak to the people that have the top sales or people that have been in the sales world, what they actually say is that the best salespeople tend to be the best listeners. So they listen very carefully to what the client actually wants and then try to deliver based off that. That's the strategy, rather than bulldozing in with, gift of the gab,
and I think
sell
that's
anything to anybody, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good recipe for long-term success as well, because you can have repeated success, whereas that sort of bulldozer approach, it could work with some people.
It might work with some people, sure, yeah.
Who are just like, okay, fine, but and also it probably wouldn't be great for the relationship, because that person, I'll probably avoid your calls, your emails. I don't want to deal with this person.
Exactly.
Rather than actually having a good relationship. So I agree with that. So they ended up with agreeing a fee for the cheesecakes for the corporate order. And I think it was maybe about, was it £6 per cheesecake? Something along those lines.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So let's talk about the girl side in comparison.
Just to touch on that point though, I think when they went in, I think their target was between £4 and £8,
right,
to start off with, and I think then they went at £6, so basically the mid range,
right,
which sounds okay for their range. But yeah, anyway, when we move on to the girl side, what was interesting was that they were going for the premium end.
Yeah.
So I believe it was around 15, 16 is what
they were
shooting for.
I think they said that they wanted £11. But then they said that if we go in high, we can hopefully negotiate down to £11.
Right. Yeah. So the 15, 16 was just the kind of opening offer.
Yeah.
With the
just to get you through the door.
But with the understanding that they would negotiate down.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember, so I was watching it, and there was a woman in the car who was saying, "Oh, I do pictures all the time," and I thought, oh, here we go, because we've seen this before, every year where people say, I'm an excellent, I pitch all the time. I pitch every day of the week, and they are appalling. They're shambolic. Someone has to come in and rescue them. So this woman says, you guys can pitch in. The only time don't pitch in is when I'm negotiating the price. I'm thinking, oh God, here we go, this is about to be some good TV. And boy was I, right, but not for the reasons I thought, because she was brilliant. Don't you think? No?
Somewhat. I thought she was good. I thought she was good. I thought she was good, but I don't know. I kind of felt a bit like, well, I suppose maybe it's on the other end. Maybe it's when they received the cake back.
No, talk about when they first negotiated the price.
Did the initial negotiation? What happened again?
She got the price down. She got the price for £13.80.
Okay.
So she was using and okay. To be fair, what I was thinking was, I don't know whether the producers have told the corporate clients to be nicer this year, because there's been other years where they have been nope, not budging, nope. They've been so like hard in terms of like you can't negotiate with them. Yeah. So I don't know, because even on the other side they did negotiate. So I don't know whether the producers have said, okay, you guys can negotiate this year, or whether she was just a good negotiator. But I think in general she was still a good negotiator.
It's interesting that you said that, because that was actually one of the points I wanted to bring later.
Yeah,
I was questioning some of the...
I didn't know whether the producers had said, okay, be a bit nicer, because in previous years they have not been able to really negotiate much.
Yeah.
But one of the things that she said, which I thought was quite funny, was she was saying things like, oh, we've got a long way to travel, and we've been doing this, labour. I was thinking, if they did have a company, I guess those are things you could say, but considering this was a task that they got given that morning, it just made me laugh in terms of like a strategy. But I guess, in previous years, what the corporate client has said was, oh, we would have been willing to settle at this at a high price. And I'm thinking, would they have? Because there's no evidence of that. Whereas this time, I guess you could see, maybe the producers told them, if they negotiate well enough for in your eyes, feel free to shake hands on a high price. Feel free to negotiate with them. Yeah,
that was the point I was going to come to, because so the first negotiation I think went well. The second one is the one where I thought was, I'm not so sure. It felt like the woman just gave it to her.
Well, we'll come back to that in a sec. We'll come back to that later on. We'll come back to that. So they agreed on a price of £13.80 per cheesecake, which, I mean, that's even more than you would spend if you were at a restaurant for like a cheesecake. That's and this is not a huge cheesecake. This is like a tiny, like a small one-person portion. You're going to get a few bites of a cheesecake. So I was quite astonished that they were able to secure the deal for that price. So then on the kitchen side, the team decided that for the mass-produced cheesecake, they were going to do a mango mojito rather than a strawberry cheesecake. And I thought that was a really good idea, because strawberry cheesecake, yes, it does sound nice, but it's also, everyone has had that before. But mango mojito, I mean, that sounds quite exotic and tropical, So nice. I'll be thinking, oh, maybe I'll give that a try. And when you're seeing a price of, £6-7, maybe I'll go for a mango mojito. So whereas on the guy's side, I think they had, white chocolate cheesecake, which, is also a good shout, to be fair. So let's talk about the kitchen production. So I think on the women's side, Onyeka was the kitchen coordinator. And it did seem a bit chaotic, but it seemed a bit more organised than the previous task.
It did, yeah.
What did you think of the kitchen production?
I'd agree too. I like the way they were all kind of chipping in with ideas, and testing things.
And they
out.
listened to each other as well.
Listening to each other, yeah. I thought that worked quite well.
And it's tough because they're not food product designers, so they can only try their best with what they can. And they try to incorporate some of the clients' needs in the sense that the clients, their colours, I think they said, was red and black. So they try to incorporate red into the cheesecake. So things like that, I think they tried to put touches in. And Onyeka was saying that she wanted to prioritise the corporate client because that was the highest margin. And even though the other side who were doing the mass production were kind of grumbling, I do think that was the right approach because you can have the highest margin there. And if you produce the shambles to the corporate client, then you can end up with nothing, and then you've lost all that money kind of thing. So, I think, yes, in an ideal world, you'd have more resources for the mass production side as well as the corporate side, but you have to do what you can do. So, yeah. Also, what did you think about the girls' decision to choose Greenwich Market or a market in Greenwich, which was further away than some of the other locations that Lord Sugar provided for them?
I suppose, especially considering that it was quite a high markup, that was probably quite a surprise as well. Because Greenwich Market is probably normally known for more cheaper items. So if you're trying to sell something that's quite expensive, that's probably might sound like a bit of a mismatch in terms of the location. Maybe if that was in maybe somewhere like where's that place called, in Canary Wharf or something, maybe that would
well, potentially, but I think that's why they wanted to sort of test what they could sell it for. And they were saying it was flying off the shelves. People were happy to pay £6 or £7 for the cheesecake. I was quite surprised too, but I guess. But I think it was. It
was £6 and £7, not 13. Oh, 13 was to the corporate client.
Yeah.
Oh, it was £6 and £7. Oh, sorry, I thought they were selling it for £13.
No.
Oh, okay, okay. So 6 and 7.
I thought it was quite a good idea because I think in previous years, I remember even the very first Apprentice, they had different locations they could go to, and I can't remember if it was the boys or the girls. They went to a location that was completely dead. I'm talking, there was no footfall. And then they ended up having to move to a different location. It was a bit of a shambles, but I think both the boys and the girls, their locations, there was enough footfall.
Well.
Yeah, so I think we just stepped in to ensure that doesn't happen in future seasons. Like, they make sure it's packed enough in terms of whatever location they give has a good footfall. So in that regards, they probably could have chosen anywhere. But yeah, I think I think it was a good choice in the sense that they wanted somewhere that could have a lot of people so that they could sell the most products to.
Yeah, makes sense.
Even though it was slightly further away.
But I must say, at work, if I'm thinking of work, I'm thinking £6-7. That's quite pricey though for like the other, because I think the boys were at work setting, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
£6-7 for cheesecake at work.
It was people
bought it, so
it's across the people understand that things are more expensive these days. So yeah, it was fine off the shelves.
Fair.
Yeah, and I thought that one of the girls, she was asking for tips, which I thought was incredibly bold, because you're saying, "Oh, buy this cheesecake, £6.50. Please feel free to get us a tip." But as Tim said, people were giving tips. I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And she was saying that she was actually the top salesperson, which I'm not surprised at if she's getting tips. So yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it worked out.
Yeah.
But a bit cheeky.
Yes,
but I like the boldness, because I think fortune favours the brave, right? So
it does. Yes, that's true.
All they can do is say no. And that's it. Okay, you said no. Here, you still have the order, still have a good day. So yeah, that was quite interesting. So after the food production, the corporate teams now went back to their corporate client to present the food that they'd made. And we start with the boys.
With the boys, I don't have the exact figures.
No, that's fine. I don't remember the figures either, but with the boys. So we start with the boys. The corporate client was not impressed. I think one of the corporate clients said, "This looks like something that school kids would make." Yeah. She was not impressed at all.
Yeah. So that was the point where I thought that they've just given them, because even from the look of their faces, I mean, look at that description. They didn't look impressed. They called it something that a child would bake, and they still bought it anyway. I think,
but they bought it for a very low. I think like £3, or I think some was like £2. So
couldn't even spend that on it. I mean,
well, they have put in some effort. You did agree a price originally, and if you think about it, let's say you have a corporate event, you need to have some sort of dessert there. So better to have something than nothing, let's say. And maybe that's the argument. But I get what you mean, that maybe would they have just said, "No, we're not taking it at all." But yeah, I think it was still a knock because I don't know if they ended up taking a huge hit anyway. I'm not sure they had much margin there. I think it cost maybe £1 to £2 to make each cheesecake, and then you're selling it for £2 to £3. So, they lost money there. So I think that in terms of the repercussions for not doing a good job, they did still face it. Yeah, and they just wasn't able to negotiate anything up, which I mean is fair because the corporate client was not happy. Then on the girl side, the corporate client also wasn't that happy with the final product. But one thing they did say was that it tasted delicious.
Okay.
Yeah, they loved it. They said it was really nice.
The look of it wasn't looking.
Yeah, and I think also how they were able to spin it is because it's the London Dungeon, I believe, was the corporate client, which is all about gore and scary. So things not actually looking that great shouldn't really be a problem because, that sort of gory. You have that sort of gory theme, I guess, going on. Okay,
so they were able to talk.
I think they were able to talk them round.
Gift of a gab.
Yeah, but the reason why I say the woman was a brilliant negotiator was because initially they asked, well, what would you expect to pay for this? And they said £8. So I thought they were going to walk away with only selling it for £8. But she said, okay, well, the only thing we can do for you is sell it to you for £11 or £12, one of the two. And I thought, I thought she was going to say 8. So I think it was more so like her confidence to be like, this is the lowest we can go type of thing. And to say, we've put all our resources in, what she said, well, we'll give you 5 extra for free. Things like that. Like she actually tried different negotiation tactics. You're right. In previous seasons, maybe they would have still said no, but I think at least she tried. Whereas on the boys' team, they just accepted defeat. Yeah, it looks rubbish. Yeah, ooh, thank you so much. £2, we'll take it, kind of thing.
Yeah, but they did it. Their one was really pitiful. At least the girls' one, it looked nice. Like it tasted nice.
Right.
It tasted delicious.
Right.
The boys' one just
it
sounded like it was a complete shambles.
Yeah.
So they're even doing them a favor. The two was even a favor that they were doing them. Was the impression I was getting them. Like they would if it was up to them, they wouldn't pay anything. But
right.
That's where I was like, have they just taken this? Have they just taken this like reluctantly? Because the way I'm looking at them, it doesn't look to me like they want it at all.
Right. But then, so as a result of the girls' teams focusing on the corporate client, they ended up going to the market late to sell the mass products.
Yes, yeah.
But the benefit to them was that as soon as they got there, it was flying off the shelf. And also they had the better pricing strategy, which is you start high and at the end of the day, you lower your prices, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the boys seem to be all over the place.
Yeah.
What did you see about the boys' pricing strategy?
It was a bit bizarre. I think one point it was like 2 for £6. At one point it was 2 for £5. The other point it was 2. Some people were doing it 2 for £5.50. So it's like everyone had their own kind of pricing strategy. And then I think at one point someone had the bright spark. Oh, let's raise it to £7. It was just all over the place, basically.
Right. And there was pushback as well about him raising the prices, which is funny because in the boardroom, Lord Sugar was saying, well, if you were selling so easily, why didn't you think at that moment, let's increase the prices and see? So it wasn't a mistake to increase the price, but I think they just waited too long.
Right.
Sort of thing. They didn't have the right pricing strategy. I don't think they thought their thing could be as valued as it could be. So they definitely made a mistake there. So even though they sold out of their cheesecake, corporate client, poor margin, and in the mass sales, poor margin too.
Yeah, so it looks like in the end it was the margin that got them in the end, because it looks like if they sold all of theirs and the others and the girls didn't, that means it must have been the margin.
Yeah, and I think because the girls were able to negotiate that high price of the corporate, I think that's what saved them.
Right.
Because I think they won by £200, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think Lord Sugar said by the time the girls got to market, the boys had already sold £81 worth of the mass cheesecake.
Wow.
So yeah, it looks like because of that girls negotiating and also because of that contestants negotiating on the girls team and able to still get them like £11 per cheesecake, that's what was enabled them to have the margin to win. So yeah, I guess that task, it's all about the margins, I guess. So lesson learned there. The girls won again, 2 in a row. Get in there, come on, girls. One of the girls did say to camera, girls are just better. I didn't say it. I'm just recapping the episode, guys. Then in terms of the boardroom, what were your thoughts on the boardroom for the boys?
The thoughts on the boardroom again was interesting. So we had another we had another person that wasn't contributing much to the task, so was brought in again. And I felt that I'm not sure what even happened on this one. I can't remember what's happening actually in this one.
Yeah, I think because the person who was the project manager, he went, isn't it? He went, isn't it?
Yeah, the project manager went.
Yeah, I think because he has a pie business,
Right.
and the pricing strategy was wrong. Choosing maybe insisting on the chocolate, not having a better strategy when it came to the corporate team, the mass market. The whole thing was just mismanaged. The strategy was wrong. The challenge, the task itself was just disorganized, all over the place. Again, he had to go because you're not really showing that you're not really showing your expertise. He didn't really give himself any grace there.
Yeah.
With regards to the task itself, I don't think it didn't seem like he managed it well either. Because sometimes you can manage your task well, the best that you can, but people make mistakes, or you've chosen the wrong idea. It just seemed like the whole thing was just wrong from start to finish. And yeah, I think it was the right decision personally.
Right.
Yeah,
I would agree as well. I think it didn't go well. I think the production as well of the cheesecake itself, I don't think was really bad as well, which is probably one of the reasons they lost so much money as well. But yeah, ultimately he's in the pie industry, so he does cook and so on, as part of his business. So yeah, it looks like the responsibility of the task rests on his shoulders. So I would agree with that one as well. Okay, that's what we've got time for today. And you do follow us on Instagram and on TikTok at Biscuit Pod. We hope you enjoyed the episode today. And we'll see you next time for another bonus episode next week on for The Apprentice. And also, we'll be continuing with our usual Wednesday episode as well. So look out for that for our Wednesday episode. So yeah, we'll see you next time. See you. Bye.
Bye.